Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Scrapbook.com's Joyful Collection. If you need to take a break from fall and Christmas card making, Scrapbook.com's Joyful Collection is for you. It's bright and cheerful. I love all the fun floral and butterfly designs. The pattern paper and smooth cardstock paper pads are both available in the 6x8 and A2 size. The Joyful Collection also includes rub-ons, a stamp set, and lots of fun die sets. And I'll be using an assortment of all of the products in this video. I'm sharing 10 different card designs and I will be making 2 of each card. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I'll grab my crafty storage pouch with tools and adhesive. I'm trying out Scrapbook.com's brand new Easy Grip ergonomic scissors, and I also have their 5-inch scissors. For adhesive, I'll be using their deluxe adhesive roller and also Barely Art glue. For this first card, I selected one of my favorite patterns, teal background with beautiful yellow flowers. I'm layering it on some green cardstock, and almost all of the colored cardstock I'm using in this video is from the Joyful Smooth Cardstock paper pad. I'll mention if I use cardstock from a different collection. I used Scrapbook.com's nested hexagon die set to cut out the yellow and orange gingham pattern paper. I used the next size up die and cut out a layer from vellum. I'll adhere the hexagon onto my card front using Barely Art glue. And I made sure to only put glue behind the pattern paper hexagon, that way it doesn't show through on the vellum. I'll be adding the sentiment high. I love the large size of the sentiment. It's available as a die and also a stamp. I use yellow cardstock for the word and white pearlescent cardstock for the outline. Just adhere those two together. I cut out a second outline from some vellum. I'll put glue on the back, adhere those together, creating a vellum drop shadow underneath the sentiment. I'll be popping up the sentiment with some foam adhesive, and I'm using Scrapbook.com's brand new 1mm foam adhesive roll. I was so excited when I saw they were releasing the 1mm size. It adds just that little bit of dimension without it being too thick. I've already purchased several rolls since I know I'll use them. They now have 3 different foam thickness sizes available: 1mm, 2mm, and 3mm. The 3mm size is perfect if you like to make shakers. Another thing I love about Scrapbook.com's adhesive rolls, the release paper comes off easily. I've already stamped and cut out 3 butterflies. I used Catherine Pooler inks, and I did pop up the butterflies with some foam dimension. For a final finishing touch, I'm using a white gel pen, adding highlights to the butterflies and also the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The new Joyful Collection includes lots of great general sentiments that you'll be able to use year-round. A simple hi or hello is always my favorite. For card design number 2, I will be using a card sketch for inspiration. The card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 43. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. You can also see close-up pictures of all of the cards, plus all of the products I use in this video. I selected 2 different pattern papers for the background, layered it on some green cardstock, used some of the light peach cardstock for the narrow strip that goes across the card. After adhering my card front onto a card base, I'll add a large white circle die cut, and the circle die is from waffle flower. I've already assembled another high, used 2 different colors of orange cardstock. I've already put foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and add the high on the circle die cut. Next, I'll add a stamp sentiment. Thank you so much. This is from the Joyful Wishes stamp set. Before adhering it underneath the word high, I did put a scrap piece of cardstock on the very right side, just in the area where it goes off of the circle die cut. And that'll help keep it at the same level. Using some of the green cardstock I used for the background, I'll cut a small banner, trying out the new Easy Grip ergonomic scissors. First cut a fishtail on the bottom, cut the right side in slightly at an angle, flipped it over, did the same thing on the other side. And I adhered it using Barely Art glue. For a final finishing touch, I'm using some of Scrapbook.com's Pops of Color. This is the clear color. I'll add 2 drops on the banner in the upper right-hand corner and 3 small drops in the lower left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 3, the sketch is from Sketch Saturday. This is number 723. I selected this bright and vivid floral paper for the background. Love those bright colors. I'm adding a narrow strip of orange cardstock. I did cut it longer than my card. I'll put adhesive on the back, adhere it on the card, flip over the panel, use my scissors to trim off the extra. That way it's nice and flush to the left and bottom side of that card panel. I'll layer that piece on some green cardstock, put adhesive on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add a white circle die cut. I use the same waffle flower die set. They have their nested circles and additional circles, and I have both sets. That way I have a nice variety of circle dies. I'm adding the sentiment hello. I cut out the word from some yellow cardstock and the outline piece from some green cardstock. I love how the 2 pieces layer together to create that fun drop shadow. There is one more piece, an outline that goes around the sentiment. I'm not using it since I'm adding the sentiment on a circle die cut. The outline piece is nice if you're adding your sentiment on a busy background. Next, I'll add one of the butterfly die cuts. I cut out the background piece from green cardstock, and the top portion of the butterfly I used some of Scrapbook.com's Mixed Metals glitter paper. It has lots of pretty sparkle without the glitter mess. Underneath the sentiment, I'll add one of the flowers and some leaves. I love all the pretty etched detail on the flowers and leaves in this set. I used the same orange cardstock for the flower and a soft peach and yellow cardstock for the very center. I'll adhere both of the leaves underneath the flower on the right and left side. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere it underneath the sentiment hello. For some reason, I had a branch with all the other die cut pieces, but I'm not using that on this card. Using some dark green cardstock, I'll cut a banner and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. This dark green color is the back side of one of the pattern papers. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Here's a look at some of the specialty cardstock I'm using throughout the video. Both are by Scrapbook.com, Mixed Metals, and also holographic mirror paper. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 641. This card will be featuring the beautiful butterfly pattern paper. For the background of the card, I have this fun stripe paper. I'll be layering it on green cardstock. I'm layering the butterfly cardstock on some of the black glitter paper. And I'm also adding a narrow strip of yellow paper on the left side. Since I am adhering the papers on a specialty finish, I'm using the adhesive roller and also some glue. Want to make sure everything stays in place. I'll put adhesive on the back, add the butterfly paper in the center of the stripe paper. Now I'll layer the background piece on the green cardstock. For most of my cards, my background panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, And I'll layer it on cardstock, either adding an additional 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. For this card, I did add an additional 1/4 of an inch. Not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but all of my cards are American Standard A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. I'm using the large high die set again. Use orange cardstock for the word and more of the black glitter paper for that background piece. Throughout the video, I've been organizing all of my die cut and sentiment pieces in one of Scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. I love using these. Now I'm not losing all those small die cut pieces. Just to save time on the video, I've already put adhesive on the back of the sentiment, remove the release paper. After adhering the sentiment on the hexagon, I'll flip it over, put glue on the back just behind the sentiment, and adhere it to the center of the card. By using vellum instead of white, you'll still be able to see more of that beautiful butterfly background. I'm adding some of the stamp sentiment, sending you a hug. And I've already stamped and cut out 3 butterflies. I have foam dimension on the back, put 2 on the left side and 1 on the right side of the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 5, using one of my favorite sketches, this is from OWH, it's number 218. I love using this sketch when I want to feature some beautiful pattern paper. I selected this lovely floral design with the black background. The flowers really pop against that dark background. I'm using some of the light peach pattern paper for the background. For the strip that goes across the card, using more of the striped paper, and I'm layering everything on some black cardstock. This is the only colored cardstock that's not by Scrapbook.com. I'll put adhesive on the back, add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Before adhering the floral piece, I will put a scrap cardstock piece behind the very top portion. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere it to the card, and that'll keep it at the same level. I just used some scrap white cardstock I had on hand, but you could use any color since it won't be visible. For the sentiment banner, I'm using some of the yellow cardstock, and I did cut it wider than what's indicated on the card sketch. I'll cut a fishtail on the left side. Before adhering it to the card, I'll put a scrap cardstock piece on the left side of the banner, then adhere it in the lower left-hand corner. And I like to put the banner a little bit higher than what's indicated on the card sketch. I'll tilt up my card to make sure my banner is nice and straight. I'm adding the sentiment hello. I use black cardstock for the word, and for the layer, I have this beautiful silver holographic paper. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the sentiment on the yellow banner. For this card, I'm using one of the rub-ons, just a tiny red heart. The rub-on set does include a popsicle stick. I cut out the small heart. I'll remove the vellum backing, place the heart on the yellow banner. Then I'll use the popsicle stick, gently rub on the heart. Then I'll slowly remove the top, making sure all of the rub-on adhered to the paper. For the 3 small circles on the left side of the card, I used the center die from one of the flower sets, cut them out from black cardstock, and I'll adhere all of those in place using Barely Art Glue. For card design number 6, the card sketch is from Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 400. I selected 2 pattern papers. I have this fun red floral paper for the center, using some of the green leaf paper for the narrow strips at the top and bottom of the card. I'll first layer the floral paper on some vellum. It'll add just that little bit of separation between the floral piece and the leaf pattern paper. Now I'll adhere the 2 narrow strips of the leaf pattern paper on the green cardstock. You could cut a full panel of this paper, but since most of it will be covered up, I decided to cut some narrow strips. I think these are about 3/4 of an inch. Now I'll flip over this panel, put adhesive on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. For the small square on the center of the card, using this bright orangish yellow cardstock, put adhesive on the back and adhere it in place. I've already gone ahead and cut out and assembled the sentiment, "Hi friend." I'm not using the outline die, I just used the word and the first layer. And I used some silver mirror cardstock for that layer, so it's super shiny. I'm also adding the stamp sentiment, "How are you doing?" I'll cut a fishtail on the right and left side, adhere the stamped banner down first, then I'll add the word friend. I almost forgot and put glue on the back of the word friend and realized I need to add the sentiment banner first. Once the sentiment's adhered, I'll add the word friend, and I have the bottom portion of the F sitting on the sentiment banner. Next, I'll add the word hi. And this set is really fun. Even the dot for the eye has that little piece for the drop shadow. Now I'll assemble one of the flowers. There's 3 different layers for the flower, a stem, and also a leaf. Glue all the flower layers together, add the stem. Now I'll put a tiny bit of glue at the tip of the leaf and attach it to the stem. I'll flip over the flower, put some foam dimension on the back using the same 1mm foam. I'll remove the release paper and I'll add a little bit of glue at the bottom of the stem. I was already starting to lay the flower down, so the leaf did stay on the card and the flower and the stem pulled off. So I did add a little bit more glue so I could reattach the flower and the stem. For a final finishing touch, I'll add some of Scrapbook.com's Pops of Color. This is the glitter snowflake color. Put 3 drops in the upper left-hand corner and 2 in the lower right-hand corner underneath the sentiment. I'm also adding a little bit on the edge of the flower petals, just for that extra sparkle. My pops of color wasn't cooperating with me, so I did use the pin for my glue and poked it through the opening. After I did that, it's flowing just fine. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For the second card, I left some of the white card base showing. I think leaving the white border gives the card a completely different look. For card design number 7, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 17. For the background of my card, using another beautiful floral paper, it has a dark blue background with bright yellow flowers. I'm layering it on some of the bluish purple cardstock. And on the left side of the card, I'm adding a strip of the yellow cardstock. I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For the small squares, I cut these out of white pearlescent cardstock. For a sentiment, I'm adding the word hooray, and I've already assembled it. This time I used the word, the drop shadow piece, and also the outline. That way it really stands out against the busy background. I have foam dimension on the back. And I am changing up this sketch just a little bit. Instead of putting the sentiment at the very bottom, I'm putting it between the 3 squares. So 2 small squares at the top and 1 underneath the sentiment. I've already stamped and cut out all of the butterflies. I use Catherine Pooler's Orange Peel ink color. And for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to all 3 of the butterflies. Very simple card design, but I love how it turned out. For card design number 8, I won't be using a card sketch, and this is another favorite card of mine. I have some white pearlescent cardstock for the background. At the bottom of this panel, I'm adding the stripe pattern paper. I also cut out 3 narrow strips from 3 different colors of the smooth cardstock: yellow, greenish teal, and orange. And the strips are 3/8 of an inch wide. I put double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the 3 narrow strips, and I did cut them just a little bit wider than the background panel. I'll adhere those in place, flip over this panel, use my scissors to trim off the extra. Then I'll layer this piece on some green cardstock. Put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. When I adhere the card front onto a card base, I like to start with the end that goes on the folded side. That way if I have a little extra of the card base, it's easy to trim off. It's also easier since that's the closer side to me and I don't have to lean over in the video. I've already gone ahead and cut out and assembled the sentiment hello. Use black cardstock for the word and more of the silver holographic paper for that drop shadow piece. Put glue on the back and adhere it on the right side of the 3-stripe area. Now I'll add several of the rub-ons. 2 beautiful orange and yellow butterflies. Start with the orange butterfly in the upper left-hand corner. I'll remove the vellum piece, place the image on my card. Then with the popsicle stick, I'll gently rub over all of the image. Try not to press too hard so I'm not marking the cardstock. And I'll very slowly peel off that backer piece. If I notice any areas that didn't stick to the paper, I'll place that back down, apply more pressure with the popsicle stick, and then slowly peel it back again. And I also cut out 5 of the little twinkle stars. I'll place all those little stars around the butterflies. And since they're really small, it doesn't take very long to rub on that image and then remove that release paper. I'll put 2 of the twinkle stars in the upper left-hand corner, 2 more twinkle stars on the right side above the sentiment, then 1 final small twinkle star on the right side of the orange butterfly. I'm not adding any other embellishments. It's always nice to have some flat cards on hand that don't require any additional postage for mailing them. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The second card is basically the same, I just used different butterfly images. For card design number 9, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 650. Using more of the stripe paper, I think this is the design I've used the most on my cards. The top portion of the card using more of that beautiful teal and yellow butterfly paper. I'll layer both of those on some dark green cardstock, put adhesive on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I'm adding the large sentiment high, and I've already assembled it with foam dimension on the back. I'll remove the release paper and adhere the sentiment in the lower right-hand corner. The card sketch indicates a circle, but I'm changing that up with the large high sentiment. I've also stamped out thinking of you, and I'll adhere it underneath the word hi. Next, I'll add 2 small banners in the upper left-hand corner. I cut out one from the same yellow cardstock I used for the sentiment, and the smaller banner is from the same green cardstock I used for the background layer. I'll adhere the yellow banner down first. Before adhering the green banner, I'll add a small piece of cardstock on the right side of the yellow banner, then I'll adhere the green banner on top, and that'll keep it nice and level. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding more of the pops of color, the glitter snowflake color. I love all the sparkle. I'll put 2 drops in the upper left-hand corner on the banner and 3 in the lower right-hand corner around the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and this is card design number 9. Now moving on to card design number 10, and this is my final card design. I'm using more of the stripe paper and also some of the light peach cardstock. I'll add both of these pieces on some white cardstock. And I could put both of the pieces directly onto a card base, but I like to create card fronts and then adhere them onto a card base. It adds just that little extra layer. I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. This card will be featuring dies from the new Joyful Shape Die set. I cut out the large circle frame from some dark green cardstock. I'm adding a white pearlescent circle on the back side. I used one of Waffle Flower's circle dies for that. Put glue on the back of the frame and I'll adhere it in place. The circle die cut's just a tiny bit smaller than the circle frame. I want to add a little bit of separation between the stripe paper and the peach paper. I cut 2 narrow strips of the same dark green cardstock. I could cut a strip to go all the way across, but since most of that area will be covered up with the circle, I'm using just 2 small scrap pieces. I'll adhere those in place with some glue. I'll be adding the sentiment thank you. I used the same light peach cardstock for the sentiment, an orange cardstock for the drop shadow, and the same white pearlescent cardstock for the outline piece. I didn't want to use another color for the outline. That way the sentiment really pops against the white background. But by still including that outline piece, it adds a little more detail. It's fun that there's different options with the sentiment. You could use just the words, you could do the words and the drop shadow, or you could use all 3 together. And the Joyful collection does have a nice variety of different sentiments. Once I have the thank you sentiment all adhered, I'll put glue on the back and add it on the center of this circle. Now I'll start assembling the flowers. I have the large and small flower using the same yellow color. For the center pieces of the flowers, I'm using orange and a light peach cardstock. I've already assembled 3 of the flowers. I love the fun etch detail around each of the flowers. Looks like a sunburst. Now I'll flip over the flowers, put some thin foam dimension on the back, using more of my favorite 1mm size. The nice thing about using the foam roll, you can have a long piece or a small piece. As you can see, it's very easy to cut with a pair of scissors. Now I'll add the flowers around the frame. I'm putting 2 flowers in the upper right-hand corner and 3 flowers in the lower left-hand corner. I like to add the flowers first, then I can tuck the leaves and foliage pieces underneath the flowers. I'm adding a little bit of glue on the very tip of each of the leaves, then tucking them underneath the flowers. And if I feel the leaves are sticking out too much, I will trim off the very end, since you won't see that part underneath the flower. I'll do the same thing for the foliage piece. Just tear off the very bottom, that way it's not sticking out too far. I'm putting 2 leaves and 3 of the foliage pieces around the 3 flower cluster. And I'll put 3 leaves and 1 of the foliage pieces around the flower cluster in the upper right-hand corner. Since I'm only adding glue on the very tip of the leaf, I'm able to curl up the end, give it a little more dimension. Or at least the look of dimension, since it will lay flat. I have 1 final leaf to add. Next I'll add 3 of the butterfly silhouettes in orange, putting 1 small butterfly in the upper right-hand corner, 1 above the thank you sentiment, and the larger butterfly on the right side of the sentiment. I'm only putting glue behind the body of the butterflies, that way I can lift up the wings for some more dimension. For a final finishing touch, I'll add a small drop of pops of color glitter snowflake in the center of each of the butterflies. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this turned out. Lots of die cutting, but I think the end result is worth it. Now here's another look at the 20 cards I made using Scrapbook.com's new Joyful collection. This is a beautiful collection. It includes pattern paper, smooth cardstock, lots of dies, a fun stamp set, and also a rub-on set with beautiful images and sentiments. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Scrapbook.com always has so many fun products. Their pattern papers are beautiful. I have a couple of their newer Christmas collections, Noel and Mary. and I'm hoping to do another 10 card one collection video using those. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.